From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy-watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about freaks. You're one of us.
I am not.
You are. You're totally one of us, and I'm one too. Space Brains are totally freaks. This is a 2020 German superhero film, directed by Felix Binder and written by Mark Regan.
Turn back now if you haven't seen this film, because we're going to go into all the juicy spoilers.
Warning.
Warning, danger. And when you do watch it, tune back in and listen to what we have to say, and you can then start shouting at us for getting it all wrong.
Yeah, or letting us know that we're totally right, as I know that we are. Sorry, unlike you. Have some confidence. I enjoyed Freaks. Freaks, you're one of us. I enjoyed it on many levels. But let's let the audience know just a little bit about it. So you've seen it yourselves, and now you're coming back to listen to us. It is following the story of Wendy. She's a shy fry cook who is tipped off by a homeless man that she's like him. She's one of us.
She's one of them.
Or she's one of them.
She's one of something.
She's one of something, and learns pretty quickly that in fact that means she has superhero powers, and they're suppressed by the government handing out these little blue pills.
Little blue pills.
Or were they green pills?
They were blue.
They were blue. Just because what we talked about, the red and blue last week with the Matrix. And as the story progresses, not only does she learn about these superhero powers, but she also learns about this greater government conspiracy, and all of that puts her family in danger.
It sure does. I think I like this style of superhero film more so than the more fantastical variety.
Yeah,
this is sort of more like that Unbreakable style, or what was that one called? Was it Almanac? Project Almanac?
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Or
actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember what it's called necessarily, but that one's pretty good. That was about like these four teenagers who find like a crashed meteorite.
Yeah, right.
And from that encounter, they gain superpowers.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And it's sort of a found footage handycam job where they decide to document what they're doing, and it starts off thinking that's going to be one way, but it's this same sort of real life consequences of superpowers and what it's really would be like to be a superhero or to have superpowers.
Yeah.
It's and so I really like this because I do struggle with some of the fantastic superheroes where it's like, oh, I've got superpowers, and suddenly I'm like super cool and I have this amazing outfit and I'm just confident and amazing. It's just kind of,
It's. I'm glad you're raising this now. I was going to talk about it a bit later, but to me, it's a wannabe superhero movie. But I don't mean it wants to be like Iron Man or Thor or Spider-Man or anything like that. What I mean is it's sort of like the key character, the story is like they're a wannabe superhero. They're a bit unsure of what that actually means. So in those traditional superhero films, like you were just saying, they go, Peter Parker goes really quickly, rapidly from, high school nerd to like this super cool, super powerful Spider-Man, right? Like it's in the blink of an eye, and he also learns that great, moral, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like, to me, these kind of films, and you've listed a couple, they're these wannabe superheroes. So they're a bit unsure of what it means to be a superhero.
And the world they're in isn't set up for superheroes.
No, it's not at all. And it's also like, so it's much more the reality we're in. Like, let's chuck a superhero into a normal world, and what would that be like? It reminded me more of, I don't know if you've ever seen Woody Harrelson in The Defender or Kick-Ass.
So Kick-Ass, yes.
Or Super with Rainn Wilson. And those films are much darker than this film. Like they're kind of a much bleaker. If you've ever seen Super, to me, is probably the best out of those three. I actually looked these back up because it's been quite a few years, since I've seen these films. And like, Kick-Ass is dark, and The Defender has some dark moments. But have you ever seen Super?
No.
With Rainn, like, it gets pretty bleak in there with the way the superhero, like, he's not a superhero, So he's just literally, it's just becomes a very violent world because they're trying to be superheroes. So it to me, this film, Freaks, You're One of Us, had a bit of that going on in it, but they were still superheroes. Was there any other references that you felt were in this movie to superhero movies?
One of them, I think Hancock a bit.
Yeah.
Because there's a point in Freaks where Electro Man, Elmar, he talks about... I know someone mentions, they're going to, catch us. The police, they'll come after us.
Yeah.
And he points out, and what are they going to do exactly?
Yeah, that's right.
And there's the same... That's the primary, I think, dilemma in Hancock. Hancock's like a superhuman, like Superman style thing, and he's not reliable. He's not heroic.
Yeah.
But the question, and he causes damage, and is a problem. And the question is, well, what's anyone going to do about it? Yeah, there's no prison that could stop him. There's no way they can actually even catch him if they. Yeah, and this is a dilemma, I think, that is it has to be faced in these superhero movies. X-Men is a perfect example, where Magneto points out, that, and I think it's a true sentiment that if you did have these superhumans arising, inevitably there would be disharmony.
Yes,
because at one point or another, like if I'm invulnerable and have super strength, for example, inevitably, maybe not me personally, because like I'm a computer programmer, but you could imagine, you'll encounter a situation where you would normally, if you were a normal person, you would back down and you'd go, okay, I'm going to avoid this. This is dangerous. Or the police are sitting there saying, right, get out of the car. We're going to search you. You say, no, I'm late for my appointment. Now get out of the car. And he's like, you know what? You can't actually make me. They hit you with a taser and you just kind of look at them.
Yeah.
And with a flick of your hand, you knock them down and you just go, well, piss off.
Yeah, that's right.
They won't, and they pull their guns or whatever, and you just laugh as the bullets bounce off you, and they try to handcuff you, and they've got no recourse. None of the usual enforcement processes will work on you, and as a result, you're above the law, really.
You are, yeah.
And that's and the more powerful the mutant or superhero, the more likely this is to happen. Where you're just kind of immune to consequences. Yeah, and eventually become powerful enough to be immune to consequences.
Yeah, and look, I thought this film, there was a lot of references to X-Men, like not necessarily totally deliberate references, but it really felt like a connection to X-Men. And I'm not exactly talking about the X-Men movies. I just mean that theme that the X-Men go for, that we have the mutants outside of the society, and society kind of doesn't like the mutants, and so there's that kind of constant struggle between the good and the bad mutants, which the X-Men are the good mutants, and you got all those sort of bad mutants, and it's exactly what what's his name? It's been a while since I've done the X-Men because I go back to the comics with X-Men, but the main villain, what's his name? He's like Electro Man. Was it Magneto? That's it. And he, that's what he basically does, right? Like he basically gives up on humans, and so he just becomes a bad guy because of that. And that's what sort of happens with Electro Man as well, is that in Freaks, he's kind of like, well, we're above the law. What is it? We don't need to be good. What are they going to do? They're stopping us anyway. Why not? Why not take back the power? And in this film especially, it's showing you that the government is giving everyone the little pills to keep the humans to keep the mutants at bay, or the superheroes at bay, and to keep the humans kind of more powerful, right? Like diminish their power. So it's kind of, to me, it's a similar idea to X-Men. Yeah, I really felt like there was a connection.
And I think that conflict would be inevitable.
Yeah.
Because of that, the human laws and so forth would not work. You'd need a superhuman to enforce laws on other superhumans. And then adult, humans just become like insects.
They do, yeah.
And in particular because, and this is my number one takeaway from Freaks.
Oh, yeah.
Number one takeaway from Freaks, superpowers are economically worthless.
Oh, okay.
And this causes frustration. And I have often contemplated this. There's a TV series a while back called Heroes. It had an absolute cracker first season.
Yeah, it did.
And there was like a writer's strike during the second season. And so it kind of went downhill. It was a bit nothing. But watch the first season.
Yep.
It's fantastic. And in that one, there's a politician guy whose brother is, thinks he has mental health issues.
Yeah.
And it's because he's a superhero
or
superpowered and kind of doesn't really know it or isn't allowed to express it. But he finds out that his brother, this politician guy, all along actually had superpowers.
Yeah.
And could fly.
Yep.
And there's just this bit where he says, yeah, but wake up, I can fly. How does that help me in the slightest? I can get on an aeroplane already.
Yeah.
I'm not invincible. I fly too fast and it hurts. Yeah. If I hit the ground, I die. I can't do anything with the flight. Yeah. And that has always struck me, is that you can't earn money with it. Okay, you can fly. Maybe you're a performer. But how long does that last? And how big can you really be?
Yeah, well, I suppose in this film, Marek, the homeless man, is invincible. And Wendy is kind of like super strong.
Yeah.
And then Elmar is like electricity or something, right?
Yeah.
Electro Man. All three of them, you would imagine the government would be interested in hiring to have as spies or secret agents or something like that. Test pilots, yeah.
Elon Musk could chuck them in a rocket.
I was just going to say, would you send them out in space, like astronauts? Could they, so there would be money. I think there'd be money that way.
It would be hard to come across, but being super strong, you'd probably get disqualified from sports.
Oh, really. Yeah, you're done with sports and stuff, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just more military. That's all. That's the only way you could work, I think.
Yeah, because we've got...
But then that's the question, isn't it? It's kind of almost like if you could build a indestructible robot or something, right? Or a force field that deflects all weaponry, does the war continue? So if you suddenly said, we have all these superheroes, would Germany now be the superpower? which is dangerous.
Well, this comes back to The Boys. If you watch The Boys,
no, I have never watched that. So, I know of it. Yeah.
Well, in that there's a guy, Homelander, who's Superman equivalent. He shoots laser beams at his eyes. He can fly. He's strong, invincible.
Yep.
And there's a plot line in there where the superhero organization gets them into military.
Yep.
Allows them to engage in military service. And it's appalling. Where he turns up and, there's the crack SEAL team and they're all doing their stealth stuff. And he just kind of walks up and goes, "Oh, hi guys. So target's in there."
Yeah.
Okay. He just strolls on in and the guards are alerted and he just flicks one of them away and goes into the building. These guys come out with machine guns to shoot him. And he just uses his heat vision to just slice through them all. It's just carnage.
Yeah.
People just dying and exploding. And this whole place explodes up. They shoot a rocket into him and nothing happens. And and it's just devastation. And then he walks out with whatever the briefcase or whatever it was and says, "There you go, boys." And walks off. And there's this SEAL team sitting there going, "Well, I feel pretty useless now."
Yeah, yeah.
Because he just walked into a machine gun fight and just killed about 20 or 30 people.
Yeah, in one...
With a literal glance of his eyes, Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and then the full circle is then, do they then at some point, like, he would be bored with that, and so he'd be like, well, why am I doing this for you guys?
Well, yeah,
like that comes
watch,
back to,
watch The Boys as these issues are all brought up.
Yeah.
But anyway, tell me though, was this hope, warning, or experiment?
I think experiment, because basically we are dealing with our current society in this film. Although it's Germany, it's very like for like for, I think, most Western societies, the way it's portrayed. However, we then have the introduction of superheroes, superpower, or, people with specific powers, and these are not accepted by society, and so therefore dulled down. The film, although ends on a high note, like, you are a freak and you will come with us as we will all be freaks. You have some sort of superpower, sorry.
Yeah, that's a nice little message, isn't it?
You poor little humans, you'll have something. We'll get you doing something. But, like, there was kind of like a unity idea at the end, but the film does not solve the experiment, I suppose. So that's why I looked at it not so much as hope, because although it ends on a hopeful note, it's not solving the problem. Like, we could go further.
It's not presenting
the solution to
problem
that problem
with, and here's a path out of it that's going to be beneficial.
Yeah,
which sort of comes with the hope.
At the end, Wendy is saying, like, we will come together and unite, like the superheroes, and we'll show everyone that they're all freaks, and it's a positive, hopeful end. But the story would have had to continue to see what actually happens from there, because I think X-Men probably actually show you that the unity never comes. If you actually go and read a bucket load of X-Men, there's always that debate about putting the mutants down and then the mutants rising up, and so that circle of human trusting the superpowers, the superheroes. So I feel that it's more of an experiment than the other two. Do you think, Surrey, that superheroes would be treated like this? Is this a good example of how superheroes you think would be treated? Like, we would dull them as children, like this film suggests? Because that's kind of the impression I got, wasn't it? It's like this psychologist who worked for the government arm was sort of keeping an eye out maybe for freak incidences with children, and at a young age getting in medicated and then keeping them medicated for life.
I think it depends on the level of superpowered people.
Yeah.
If there was very few, like say 1 in a million or something ridiculously small, I don't think there'd be anything, because they would be so insignificant in the grand scheme of the world.
Yeah.
That they would kind of disappear into the background numbers.
Yeah. Something would
which always is one of these things that I also think about, rather than like, okay, you're a superhero and you can't really do anything to earn any extra money. We've got technology already which can lift heavy objects and fly, and there's not a lot for you to do. But the other side of this problem here is the evil villain turns up.
Yes.
And says, I am here to conquer the world. And I always think the world should just turn around and say, we are conquered. You are now the ruler of the universe. Now what?
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't thought that far ahead.
No.
But even if that one evil villain then says, okay, well, build me a palace. Okay, we'll build you a palace. Okay, and fill it with gold, if you like. Here's like a whole reserve pile of gold. We use Bitcoin now, so okay. And, I want servants and slaves. Oh, okay, here's a whole bunch of people working for you. Yeah, the whole rest of the world would just continue on.
Yeah.
Because this guy's influence and power and abilities would only go so far.
Yeah, it would.
Unless they were truly at a godlike level.
Yeah.
But then why the heck do they want to just conquer the world? So it's the same sort of thing. So if you only had a couple of superheroes about the place, someone who's like super strong, it might make the bit of news. Oh, isn't this peculiar? Someone lifted a car off a baby. That's interesting. But you get the occasional YouTube clip or something, and people go, oh yeah, okay. But there's no real, even if they became a criminal, like super strong criminal, okay, they punch into like an ATM and pull out some cash.
Yeah.
you got like 10 grand.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You're
It's
not-
covered by insurance.
Like normal people, villains, criminals do that already.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's this, but if you had heaps of villains, like it was 1 in 100 or something, or 1 in 10, then no, you still wouldn't have the government control because there'd be so many. You'd have organizations built up to appropriately. You'd have schools. You'd have like X-Men. You'd have schools for these people where they'd learn to operate within a society.
So that was my question, right? You're going the positive route.
But if you have a critical number, so enough that their presence would be a danger, like, if you didn't sedate them, there'd be enough instances like at the start where Wendy throws a desk through a wall and through a teacher, where you'd be getting like, deaths occurring from accidents, basically. Or you'd get criminal gangs forming of superhero, superpowered people.
That would cause
then
problems.
You got enough to cause the problems, but you don't have so many that you've got organisations forming which self-manage.
Yeah.
You would have to come in and you'd have to sedate in some way. You'd have to take control in a way that minimised harm. And I think that's what this case here is. The doctor, she wasn't malicious. She wasn't performing experiments on them even. It was just literally just giving them some effectively antidepressants, but it was anti-superpower sort of thing, and trying to get them to live incorporated in society.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think then if you have that critical level, which they had in this film, that yes, you'd get something like this where you'd get some effort, some people would know about it. It would be brought to the attention of authorities of some sort, and they would, in this case it's a government, but it could equally be a private organisation,
treating it like a medical condition.
Treating them or whatever, so sure. And do you have any favourite scenes?
I loved the typical hooligan male drinking scene where she walks by.
Every superhero film has one.
Yeah, she walks by once, and always makes you think in films like I kind of get the point of doing it in a story, but she walks by this 3 rough-looking guys in a dark neighbourhood car park on the way home. She's in her little mini skirt from the diner, and of course, they start kind of doing 1930s construction site men sort of behaviour, wolf whistling and telling
baby,
her, hey, come on,
baby,
come over here. And, she keeps walking, and it always makes you think, why would you walk back through that? Or if you notice them, why would you continue? And then, of course, later in the film, once she's kind of discovering her superpowers, she walks past again and they do the same sort of behaviour, and so then she stops and confronts them, which is fine. She verbally confronts them and then sort of stands up to them and says, well, let's go at it right now. And they ignore her at first, and then, no, don't stand up to me. I'm going to now beat you up. But that just the way that then it was unveiling her strength was pretty cool. I reckon that she just picked those guys up and threw them around. It was a bit like Hancock. It was a bit of a similar sort of special effect, wasn't it? But I liked those special effects, the way that she kicked and punched and they went flying off into the ether, so to speak.
A bit over the top, yeah.
Yeah, like way over the top, really. But I think it's way over the top, but it's also that in all those years that you do watch things like, we grew up on Superman, those kind of movies, they didn't have those special effects available. And of course, Superman punches a hole through a wall, it's one thing, but realistically, he could probably punch someone across, hundreds of meters, right?
Probably
but you
punch
never saw
through
it.
them.
Yeah, probably actually would punch through them. So
again, watch The Boys.
so it's kind of it's good to see an example like this where it is so over the top, because in reality, I think that's what it would be. So that was a favourite scene of mine.
You've got to assume that she was using all of her strength.
Yeah.
Because she didn't realise how much strength she had. So she's like, yeah, those poor guys. she basically just killed them. Like,
yes.
There's no way that you could be thrown into a pole like that without.
Yeah, well, I did think that. Like, and then later,
trauma.
It's the same later. It's a nice touch of the writing, because then later when they try to break out the other superheroes from the medical facility, and then they fail, and then when they get out to the car park, the guards, security, whatever, surround them, and Elmar, Electro Man, kind of just electrocutes them all. And then they run off, and then she says, "You don't know, they could be dead." And he's like, "Yeah, but they're going to get us." And it's like, it's a good point, isn't it? When they don't know their own strength or their own capabilities, that therefore they're just like, "Oh, I'm defending myself," and they might just annihilate. So what you just said, that other guy walking in and zapping and killing 30 people just like that, whereas once they know their strength, then they can understand how to maybe...
They can moderate it.
Moderate
and I think Electroman does get that, because he seems to be able to just kind of give people little zaps to stun them. I think, though, that scene where Elmar does zap all those guards and it's unknown what their fate is, the problem those guards did is they escalated the encounter to fatal force.
Yeah, they did.
They pulled guns, which is basically threatening, saying, if you don't comply, we will kill you.
Yeah.
Which means that they've got a choice of either, capitulating, and thus they know they're going to be imprisoned and sedated.
Yep.
Or if they try to run for it or do anything else, they're going to be killed. So you kind of... It's a bit of a coin toss there. You may as well kill them.
Yeah, and if we were in that situation, what would we do too? You would save yourself, right, as best as possible.
I know, being able to sit in the room and just paint all day, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
So really, those guards should have approached with maybe...
brochures.
Like
saying, you come in, you get to do painting.
Maybe just with their hands at first saying, hey, okay, guys, we've got you surrounded.
Yeah.
Calm down, let's go easy. Because then it's more likely, there's no longer a fatal threat there, which means your response to that will be less fatal. You'll probably run for it.
Yeah.
And then they'll tackle you or try to, anyway.
They didn't have to lift it to that. What was your viewing experience like? What was your first impression? What was your feelings? How did this film make you feel about superheroes?
I quite got a very German feel. And not just from the language, but I've watched a couple of German and a couple of Nordic shows, and in particular Dark. Have you seen Dark?
Do you know that it's the same writer here?
Same writer as Dark.
Yeah,
I did not know
there you
that.
go. Mark Sing.
Well, okay. Well, so Dark is obviously it's a German science fiction film, TV series, which I thoroughly recommend. It will. You probably have to binge all 3 seasons. Yep. Because if you stop between them and you forget things, and then you'll go crazy trying to remember them. But there's sort of something similar to the way the dialogue and the action was shot, and the lighting, and just there was some similarity there that I went, this feels German. And I've seen a few other things, even back on SBS, watching what's that one with that dog, police detective. Don't know.
No,
as a German Shepherd police detective. His name was
solves the crime.
Yeah, basically, it's like
you
can imagine
K9 is it or something?
No, it was a name of a dog anyway. So if you could imagine Lassie, but it was a German Shepherd and a police dog, that sort of thing. But it had that same color tones, maybe the similar. Anyway, there's something that made me go, "This is very German." Like even if I didn't hear the words, even though I'm speaking English, I'd think, a German director or this was produced in Germany. There's something about it. Yeah. And there's a couple of TV shows I've also watched. The Rain, which is Swedish or Norwegian. Oh God! If you're Swedish or Norwegian, listen to this.
Correct, sorry.
You know what I'm talking about. There's another one though, which is definitely Norwegian, which is Ragnarok, which is it's a superhero one. It's about this kid who's he's a teenager of some sort. They move home to Juntenheim or where it is, some freaking village or other, which is and it's like the Norse mythology, being played out, and he's like Thor sort of thing. Anyway, you got to watch it to understand it. But again, it has similar filming, and I'm wondering if that's a typical sort of mid through Northern European look. Like that's the way they make cinema there. You know, that's the
yeah.
schools do that there. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice. I sat and watched it out on the real TV with my wife, and while the kids are in bed.
Yep.
It was a very nice little watch.
Did you do German or did you...
German with subtitles, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
This started automatically for me with the English dub over. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, no, I can't do it. I've got to go German. I've got to go to the German.
Yeah, no, I can do the dub for animation, but yeah, it doesn't quite work out for real action. They can't get the right sound.
You come from Germany, don't you, at some point in your life? Are you one of these German superheroes?
I was born in Essenheim, north of Germany, near Mainz.
I think you can pronounce the actors' names in a few moments.
Yes, I will give it a shot.
Your sisters and your brothers?
Yes, meine Schwester und Bruder. I moved over though, so I speak German about as well as a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old speaks.
Still better than me.
Because that's when I moved over to Australia. So I work with a couple of colleagues who are more recently German, and yeah, they correct me and have a laugh because I say, look, imagine I'm a 4-year-old saying these things.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly makes sense. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, so so that's great. But I am a freak, yes, obviously.
Yeah. We're all freaks here. What's a science fiction thing or creative thing you're up to then?
Oh man, this past couple of weeks it's all been about trying to sell my house. So there's not a lot of that, you know, I've been doing cleaning and gardening and
getting the house
fixing
ship shape and
fixing
shiny
pergolas and finishing off kitchens and all that sort of thing. Having said that though, I finished watching The Mandalorian,
right?
The Tick, which is a superhero film, but a TV show, but it's sort of a comedy.
Yep.
Based off a cartoon.
There is a movie, The Tick, isn't there? I think. I feel like there was a movie in the 90s, The Tick, I'm pretty sure.
There might have been a movie.
Yeah, like a comedy, superhero comedy movie thing.
It's a cozy comedy.
Yeah.
It's nothing astounding, but it's quite friendly and pleasant to watch.
That's good.
And Carnival Row. So that's what I've sort of been watching lately.
And what's Carnival Row?
Carnival Row is a steampunk urban fantasy.
Oh, right.
So it's Orlando Bloom. Took us a while to figure that one out because we're looking, going, he's from The Hobbit or something? Was he the guy who shoots the dragon? No, it doesn't quite look like that, but I recognise it. And then finally it comes up, executive producer Orlando Bloom, act starring Orlando Bloom. Oh, okay. Well, he's made himself a TV show to be in. That's cool.
Yeah. Why not? If you could do that, why not?
But it's pretty good. Yeah, it's sort of a conflict between fairies and humans.
Okay.
In a Victorian-esque sort of universe, not at all Earth.
It's amazing all of these, like even this film, Freaks, was basically just commissioned by Netflix. And just when you're saying, was that show like a Amazon Prime show? So we've got all these different, The Mandalorians, Disney, all these streaming services, and then they must have such a demand for new stories then, hey? Because they just seem to be pumping out the amount of
in
stories.
particular genre.
Yeah.
Because we've just had this renaissance, amazing influx of stuff. There's all this new Star Trek stuff. There's Picard. There's Discovery. There's and then there's that new Lost in Space thing, and they're kind of the big known names. And then there's The Expanse, and what other stuff? Obviously, The Mandalorian.
Yeah. But there's a whole bunch of that kind of teenage, high school, but fantasy world thing, right? They're either fairies or they're witches or they're I don't know, some werewolves
yeah.
or vampires. Like, it just seems to be, or they're superheroes, some sort of superhero ability, or they're magicians. You know, like it's
have you seen The Magicians?
I have seen The Magicians. That's an interesting one. But yeah, they all centre around that same old sort of Harry Potter world in a way, but just high school and I don't know. It's funny. It's a huge bunch of them.
I tell you what, though, I'm getting quite annoyed about I'm a teenager who's a bit of a loser in life, and I have this superpower. Oh, I don't want it. Why do I been cursed with being super and awesome and special and what? Every person on the earth wants to be somehow special or important.
But come on, when you're a teenager, that is what is running around in your brain. Is like, am I special? Am I really special?
And then suddenly you find that you can teleport at will or fly or do magic.
Oh yeah, shit, yeah, you're special.
And then you're gonna whinge and cry about, why do I have this?
But I'm still in love with my boyfriend.
I just want to be normal. And no, you don't. You don't want to be normal.
You've got to control that force so that you are the true one.
I don't have to control Jack, man. I mean, I would be a villain, let's face it.
Yeah, you would be.
I'd be a sneaky villain, but I'd be a villain. Sooner or later, someone would tell me, sorry, you can't do it. And I said, don't tell me that. I can pick up ice cream with chopsticks. It's my special power.
Yeah.
Wha-cha! Oh, okay. So, but what about yourself then? How you going with these things?
I am in the thick of writing. I think I said that last time. Because of us having a lockdown, I kind of just, stuck into it. But I'm really feeling I've got these 3 short scripts. The plan is to make 2 of them over the course of 2021. And 2 weeks ago, they felt like they were something, but now they're really becoming these refined little things. I've been really working hard on log lines as well for each story. And so, I've got 3 going on. One, which I've talked about a few times, is like a time travel one. Whereas the other 2 are, one's kind of like a comedy magic potion sort of fish out of water story. And then the third one goes back to that exercise that we have discussed previously on here, coming from Andy J. Pizza, of kind of identifying your themes as a writer. And then there's a story that I wrote about that encompasses my themes, since discovering what my actual themes are. So, I'm just in the thick of writing. Plus, I've got this crocodile, horror, thriller, survival film that I've dabbled with, and that is the one that is on my beat board. So, again, I'm trying to get the log line really down pat this time, instead of just kind of running at it, 100 miles an hour, having the whole script 90 pages done, and then someone saying, so what's it about? And you go, oh yeah, well, it's about these 2 people.
I've got one for you.
So before you go any further, it's just I'm in the thick of writing, so go for it.
Here's your log line.
Yeah.
In a crocodile, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, that's good. Is there irony in that?
Is this a comedy,
No,
horror? No. Okay,
no,
so maybe in a crocodile is not right. In
a crocodile's stomach,
no one
can hear you scream. Yeah, that could be. Well, that could be on the poster, right?
It could be.
That's Inside
a lot of times, the monster movies tend to go for, even the serious ones tend to have at least a little bit of a camp side to them, because there is, personally, there's a sort of ridiculousness to them. Yeah. So you kind of need a little bit in there. Even Jaws had a little bit here and there of kind of
this idea is all centered around, and I've struggled to get my hands on a copy of this. I believe it is on Amazon Prime, of course. After I cancel my subscription to it, is Open Water. Have you ever seen Open Water?
I've not. I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it's a low budget indie film based on what happened to a Queensland couple, except that they went out on the tourist boat scuba diving, and the boat leaves, and they're just in open water, right? That's the basis of the film, and this couple who are scuba divers wrote and directed this film. And it is basically about a couple that get stuck out in the ocean and, bob out in the open water with sharks. I saw it and it blew my mind, because it's kind of like it's not like Jaws. It's not the monster in the deep. It's real. Like, they're real sharks. They actually filmed with, like, real sharks out in the ocean and stuff. Comparing it to, like, a monster shark like Jaws or whatever, you know. So, or you get, you know, these monster creature films, and you're exactly right. There has to be a little bit of campness to it, as in... like Lake Placid, where Betty White is feeding cows to the crocodile, and it becomes this ginormous thing. And Jaws is a good example. It's massive.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
What's that Samuel Jackson shark movie? And
Deep Blue.
They've like genetically modified the sharks, you know, and that's what quite often happens, right, in those creature features. So whereas open water, and it's something that's always stuck with me, and it wasn't something that I like intended, but I suddenly had this idea of. Yeah, like a dysfunctional married couple getting stranded with a crocodile. And probably something I saw, I've had that idea, and then I, not too long ago, did watch Crawl, where a father and daughter get stuck in the bottom of the house with alligators. And again, they're just normal alligators. They're not like these sheer, massive, genetically modified alligators or something. And really, a lot of the tension of the film is the fact that they've got a broken relationship, but they're stuck in this, you know, setting. So, yeah, that's kind of... There's a concept there that I think could be played out quite nicely. So there's, like, terror in the unknown. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. So not going too campy. There will be a fair bit of the drama of the story is this dysfunctional married couple in such an extreme survival moment.
But you tear someone to pieces.
That's got to happen. Come on.
Well, you've got to have that to establish the stakes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to show that this is a killer croc.
Yes, yeah. And you can do that in different ways. Another film that kind of did it a little bit, and hey, if you're a young... I just totally know how they could sell this film, is The Shallows. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Yeah, with Blake... is it Blake Lively? She's quite a good-looking woman, and she gets stranded on a rock with a great white shark circling.
Oh, okay. I think I've seen...
She's a surfer.
I think I've seen ads or something for that.
Yeah, that's a good sort of one. I mean, again, there's not much drama in it. It's kind of, hey, let's just put a really hot chick in a bikini on a rock with a massive shark.
Makes sense to me.
Circles her and bites her and stuff, and can she get back to shore? 90 minutes later. You know, so that film does I won't spoil it, but that film does a really clever way of showing you how dangerous the shark is, you know, but keeping her alive for a big portion of it. So, wow. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm in the thick of writing. And you and I are also in the thick of pushing Space Brains to another level.
Logos and colours.
Yeah, we're getting very close. I know everyone out there that listens is, you know, they're on a knife's edge waiting to see the reveal. Sorry.
If you've been looking at the cover art that's been coming through on the last few episodes, there's been some experimental designs there, looking at different colours and different possibilities.
Colours are starting to morph a little bit maybe into what we want it to kind of get to.
But yeah, I'm sort of looking to see what these things look like as podcast covers.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, none of are our final choices. So
get your bag of popcorn and wait a little bit longer.
I know, this is going to be one of the most exciting reveals ever.
I know. I'm dying to see the end result, honestly.
And it's going to be revealed by Steven Spielberg on a special episode with the Wachowskis and Will Smith.
Yeah, beautiful. The ones that we keep shouting out to and just don't... I mean, they are constantly replying to me. Yeah, they are just constantly.
Oh, they don't get
We're on Instant Messenger.
Instant Messenger.
You know that thing that Microsoft used to do?
They don't leave me alone. Okay, well, let's get stuck in this film.
We should.
Give us a bit of a brief overview.
Okay, so it's directed by Felix Binder. He's a German director. By the looks of it,
That's pronounced Felix.
Ah, I got that one right. Binder. Felix Binder. You did that.
I'm sorry, Felix.
I know. Sorry, Felix. And it looks like he's directed a whole bunch of German TV shows, you know, etc. Written by Marco Seng. Marco Seng? I presume that's how you say it, Mark. Let us know if we're doing it wrong. And Felix and Mark, please come talk to us about this film. Mark as I realised looking at IMDb, did do Dark. And although I've never seen it, I know you've talked a lot
You've
about
not seen Dark?
No, I've not. It's on my sort of like to watch list.
You've got to watch it. It's great.
The good thing now is it's all just there, so I will just binge it.
Marco's saying must have worked pretty darn hard on that script because it's good.
And we have starring Cornelia
Gröschel.
Gröschel. See, good thing I've got a German here tonight, so we can actually
because it's an O umlaut, so it's you can pronounce it a bit like an OE, so Gröschel.
Gröschel. Tim Oliver Schultz. Everyone knows a Schultz.
Schultzy.
And this one's a tough one. It's got another one of those O things. Wotan Wick Moring.
Well, it'd be Wotan. Wilke Möhring.
Say it again.
Wotan Wilke Möhring.
Ah, that sounds good. Just rolling off your tongue.
The W's are all V's. And the E's at the end of the words are pronounced usually.
And like I mentioned...
Although old Wotan can get in touch if his name actually is Wotan.
Yeah. Tim and Wotan are quite big actors, actually. They've done quite a few different projects out there. Huge Instagram followings.
They're not the Skarsgårds, but they're getting there.
They're the Will Smiths of Germany. That's what I'm saying. I'm calling it here, sorry.
That'd be
you heard it here.
Will Schmidt of Germany.
And this was filmed in Germany, and it was one of those things that, from what I can gather, who cares about the box office because it's all about Netflix. So it's how many people are going to stream it, how many people are interested in it, how many clicks, how many, not pausing it. I paused this movie about 4 times because I kept getting interrupted by my youngest child. Because I sort of just watched it on the computer, in my office, and she just wouldn't leave me alone that day. So I kept pausing it. Netflix will take note of that and give some feedback to Felix. Poor Felix and Mark. One user in Australia kept pausing it. Something was wrong. That's what Netflix will be saying. So let's get stuck into the story and some of the filmic techniques that Freaks, one of us has. So we start with a young girl crying. She's in this empty school, tears running down the face. We kind of then start seeing how the school is empty, but it looks like it's been evacuated in a hurry. There's kind of school bags everywhere. There's some desks tossed over, I think. Doors are wide open. We then kind of cut outside where we have emergency personnel. We have some people kind of being attended to by paramedics. And then we get a sort of middle-aged woman who looks like she's kind of running the show, I suppose, long trench coat. Very German looking, I thought.
I thought she looked a bit like Carrie-Anne Moss.
She did.
Trinity.
Yeah, she did a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of an older version of that. Yeah. So the short hair... looked very sophisticated, very professional. Anyway, she walks past a few of these people in attendance of the paramedics and stuff and sort of looks up, and you can see on the side of this building there's a big chunk of wall missing, a couple of stories up.
And there's a broken desk with some blood on it.
Oh, it's covered in blood. Yeah, and she sort of looks a bit concerned, and then she wanders inside the school, and again we sort of see a basketball court empty, and we see some other things. I thought that was really nice that we had this sort of school that was lived in, but no one was in it.
I also liked it looked in the past. You could tell like the police uniforms and the cars. They didn't say, 1992.
No, they just
went in there and showed us that it was 1990.
Yeah, and
something.
Look, anyway, she sort of walks. I kind of thought, oh, she's the detective or something. That was kind of my impression of this Dr. Stern, because we don't obviously just get her introduced. Anyway, she finds this little girl tucked away in the gymnasium, sort of in a cupboard in the gymnasium, crying, and kind of says it's going to be all right. I think something like that.
Yeah, everything will go back to normal.
Yeah,
and it will be all right.
And we have a good jump cut here of her kind of putting the headphones on as a child, closing her eyes, and then opening them as a woman, Wendy.
Yes.
And she's got Listen to the Heart coming through on the alarm clock. It's a nice little song.
That's a bit of a filmic thing, isn't it? The music, as you say, diegetic.
Yeah.
But it starts off as just part of the soundtrack, And then you realise, it's the alarm clock, the classic old clock radio thing. Someone slams a hand on it, and somehow that works.
Yeah.
It never did for mine. I had to actually flick a little switch. But somehow they hit it and it stops it, and they
I've always got to push my button twice as well. It never, and mine's not that old of an alarm clock. But I think you have to push it twice to turn it off.
But yeah, so I think this is one of those things that only really happens in movies.
Yes.
But everyone knows that the music, Sonny and Cher on Groundhog Day or whatever starts up. What's the one on Back to the Future? The Power of Love.
Power of Love, yeah.
And they hit the alarm clock and it turns off.
Yeah.
And
or put the headphones on and it starts playing.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But it's always interesting because filmmakers can play with that diegetic like that, where you think it's non-diegetic, so it's not in the world of the film, and then it actually is, by turning the alarm clock off.
I think that's what happened here. It starts off that black, you get the full volume
of
listen
it,
to your heart, because she puts it on her headphones. It's this tinny sort of little headphones down, and then it's the full sound, and you're thinking, okay, we're going into maybe a title sequence. Yeah. But no, it's the alarm clock. Yeah.
Bang. Wendy, we kind of learn pretty quick. She's like a wife. She's a mother. She's making breakfast for the kid. She opens a bill, so they don't. This is a bit of the Blake Schneider 6 problems, isn't it? 6. They've got to have 6 problems in their life. She's dressed in a bit of a dull, She's either kind of like a cook or a diner or waitress or a cleaner. It's a very boring outfit. The husband's a security guard. He's just kind of in a black outfit that says security. And they sort of have a little disagreement over paying the bills. And the boy wants to eat Nutella instead of his breakfast. So it's kind of like they're not in a totally great little sort of family.
It's a bit mixed up, and it was I will get that promotion.
Yes,
which I was sort of, it can't be that big a promotion.
No,
what? But anyway, you go, girl.
You go get that promotion. So, they have a little, and also
she's not very affirmative about it. She's not very strong, which is part of that setup for her later on, where she becomes very confident. Yes.
They have a little fight about the bills and bills not being paid, but then they get over it, and it shows you that as a couple they're obviously pretty united.
Relatively healthy couple.
And they walk off in their separate directions. She is then out the back of this pretty shitty little diner. It looks like to me.
Cutlet heaven.
Cutlet heaven. She's cleaning and she's trying to lift these really heavy kegs or something, isn't she?
She goes. That's where she goes and asks for the promotion, and the woman's reading her boss, this big butch boss. We're reading Arnold Schwarzenegger. Says, how you get here, you be strong and you do this, that, and the other thing. You're not that. But I'll give you extra shifts. Yeah. And so she's okay, well, thanks. Start by changing the kegs.
That's right, yeah. Sorry to sell around, yeah.
So she's lugging these kegs along, and I said, you should be rolling them. Well, everyone knows that. But she's leverage.
But it was a great little scene with the boss, wasn't it? She's this dowdy, fat...
Reminded me of...
woman like...
Matilda.
Yeah,
Matilda's headmaster.
Yes. She's quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger's book about, you've got to be affirmative in what you want to...
You have to be affirmative. Wendy.
She did it really well. Stop being
unaffirmative.
Yeah. Anyway, she's cleaning out and she goes out. There's a woman parked in a disabled bay and she tells her off, but the woman just kind of flips her the bird, basically, doesn't give a shit. And as she's putting this rubbish in the big bins out, the big skip bins, we would call them here out the back... a homeless man's kind of dumpster diving for food, asks her about the food. She's like, and then the boss comes out, hey, get out of here. Arnold says, you got to eat your protein.
Eat your protein. Hey.
She tells him off, and the homeless man starts to go, but as she goes back in, nice little save the cat, Wendy kind of gives him
a bit of food.
Kind of says, what crap do you want to have?
And this whole sequence here is kind of like the Shaun of the Dead sequence.
It is.
This is her daily routine.
It's a daily routine, and
the next day when everything changes, we see the daily routine again, but each routine has changed.
Yeah. Yeah, so after that, like that scene I talked about, she's walking home and she gets sexually harassed by these guys, doesn't say anything to them. No. So again, walks off, ignores them basically. And when she's going over this bridge, she suddenly gets harassed again by the homeless guy and freaks her out. And he tells her that, you are one of us, or you're like us, something along those lines, and that he's got a superpower. And she's thinking he's crazy, as you would. But
he does say he knows about the blue pills.
He knows about the blue pills.
So you got to think there's something there.
Yeah, and he says, stop taking them and you'll find out. She still doesn't really believe him, and so he goes, I have to show you. And he just jumps off this bridge over this highway, and you think, is he going to fly? Is he going to do something like that? No, he's just lying on the concrete. She looks over, and then there's just this mammoth big semi-trailer truck bowls him over.
Bonk. Yes.
And so she sort of is quite upset, runs away, calling the police, saying that there's been a horrific accident. And then she's in therapy with the woman from the start, who now we learn is called Dr. Stern, and she talks about they talk about superheroes, don't they? They have a kind of a moment of, she relays what the homeless man said to her. And how that made her feel that maybe we are superheroes. And Dr. Stern says, no, you can't have those thoughts. We've got to double your dosage. It was a nice, I didn't say it before, but like when she did wake up in bed, she straight away took her blue pills.
Yeah.
And it was great that she popped them. I liked that. In so many films, they're always coming out of those canisters and stuff.
Yeah, I like the action.
I liked the act. Like you could hear it, the popping, and then when she says double the dosage, she actually pops out the 4 of them, and it's like, oh yeah, it's really tangible. Like you can.
It's like the phones in the Matrix.
Yeah, it is. It's the same sort of thing. It was very like she's going to have the 4. Oh, she's popped 4 out. She's going to have 4.
She flushes them.
She does. That's in a little bit. So, at the diner, the homeless man rocks up again, and this time he gives her a bit of a clue, saying, just follow the mermaid. You'll find us. And the boss again sort of confronts it all, and I think does she throw stuff at the homeless man and calls Wendy a wimp, and also that she needs to believe in herself.
She states the theme.
She does. On the way home, she finds her son kind of sitting there, a bit down and depressed, and with no shoes on. And there's these other boys. Her son says, "Well, they took him away," and they sort of did a bet, didn't they? A bit of a, if you kick the goal or something, I get the boots or something. Some sort of dodgy bullying sort of deal. And she tells them, no, give the shoes back. But the boys call her out on it. Then these are only little boys.
And they say, what are you going to do?
They're going to hit us? And of course, then, no.
My wife and I, we just about went ape shit at this point. Because it was like, I could imagine someone doing that to my little son.
Yeah.
The kid said, what are you going to do? Hit us? Ooh, I would be so sorely tempted. But I would certainly walk up and
just remove the shoes. That's what you have to do.
Give him a good word, assault.
A good word mouth salt.
I wouldn't lower myself to like backhanding like a kid half my size, but I would certainly consider just sort of pulling the shoes off his feet.
Yeah, I'd pull the shoes
and going,
off.
what are you going to do? You're going to hit me?
Yeah.
But my wife and I were just livid at this thing because
I'm going to write a letter here. Sorry.
Recently, something not quite this bad happened.
Yeah.
At a skate park, my wife was skating at, and there were some kids. They would have been maybe 10, 11-ish, the same sort of age as in this.
Yeah.
And they were being
bullies,
purposefully annoying.
Yeah.
To my wife and her 2 friends who were skating, and at the end of it, one of them had his McDonald's milkshake, and just sat there and just tipped it out over the ramp.
Right.
Like where they were wanting to skate.
Yeah.
And just watched. And my wife said he was this close to getting a skateboard in the face.
To getting a clip around the old ears there, sorry?
But she bloody told him off.
Yeah.
And let him know why exactly he would always fail in life. And yes, probably a bit harsh. But still, these things, it's just...
Can you imagine he went home that night and went, Mummy, some old woman at the
No, I
pub.
doubt it. I reckon he gets bullied at home. That's like...
Yeah, that's the problem.
The thing is, it's not the kid's fault, it's the parents' fault. And their parents' fault, really.
Yeah.
But
And that's the thing, even in this movie, like, you could go, wouldn't you just, like, march that kid up to his parents and say, this kid took my kid's shoes, I'm taking them back. But the parent might be like, oh, no, he did nothing wrong. What was that? It's gambling. That's fine. Your son lost them fair and square. Like, you march that kid. Well, what? He tipped the McDonald's cut. What? You can't handle a bit of McDonald's slushy on the floor, on the ramp? What?
you chicks shouldn't be skating anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Like, what are you doing out?
God.
You're on the kids' ramp. You're playing with kids. You're pedophiles. So that's where you kind of start. You can't necessarily reason, can you?
No, and this is actually one of those points where, yes, you got superpowers. You're sort of sitting there going, well, why am I putting up with this mundane bullcrap?
Yep.
I'm going to murder those children. No, I like what she actually does. I think that was pretty good.
Anyway, in this moment, she just walks away. So then there's the nice thing that she's home, she's in the bathroom, she pops those 4 pills out, but flushes them. Anyway, next day, she's all sweaty. And Elmar, the colleague, noticed that she's all sweaty. She's all sweaty head to toe. So
hard day.
Hard day at the office. But it was a good thing that she was all sweaty. She shows a lot of strength at the diner. She breaks the trays and bends them and then hides them. And yeah, it was all twisted. She's trying to like straighten them out, and that boss comes out, Wendy, what are you up to? And Elmar, the colleague, kind of awkwardly tries to ask her out, so...
But I thought that was a bit... Like, he must know that she's married.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a secret.
No.
So that's quite a creepy thing to do, is like, after work, come up and like, hey, how you going? Like, would you like a beer? Like... Yeah. So, yeah, old Elmar has got issues.
He does, and we sort of find out a bit more about them, and maybe, that is an indicator of where he's going, actually, in his personality. This time, she walks past the hooligans on the way home. She confronts them. The guy's sort of saying, I want to, get all up on you, whatever, and that's the Australian version of the Germans. And she says, all right, then, show us your goods. So she sort of stands him down, and then that guy's like, typical... a few expletives, runs after her, grabs her on the ground, and her not knowing quite her strength yet, then kicks him away, kicks one guy, punches another way, and as I said earlier, they're kind of far-flung across the car park. One guy hitting a light pole, I think he'd just be dead.
He's snapped.
I really liked that scene, as I said earlier. The next moment, we're in the psychologist. The psychologist does come to the diner and... kind of warns her about stopping the meds. So I suppose it's good there in the narrative, isn't it, that we don't really hear about the men. How did she know something was up, Dr. Stern? She must have figured something out, eh?
Well, she's probably got enough patience that when they start asking about superpowers...
She wants to keep a bit
that's
of a
like a keyword.
Yeah,
it's
like
a
warning,
red flag.
Warning. The algorithm kicks in.
Yeah.
In the Matrix. Still stuck on the Matrix. So she offers help, but Wendy says she's all right. And so this is where we learn a bit more about Elmar Surrey, that he is a little bit weirder again. He's in this strange dynamic at home that he's still living with his dad and...
Not his mum.
Not his mum, as he keeps getting corrected. And he does like to call her mum, which was a bit odd. And also, his dad's really a hard ass on him getting, making something out of his life. Go to uni. What are you working at a diner for? There's... And I noticed it was funny that they kept saying 4 billion people, 5 billion people, 7 billion people. They kept changing the numbers in this movie. And maybe that's just expressionisms of, what we all say. Oh, there's lots of people in the world. Oh, there's billions of people. Oh, there's millions. I don't know. I did notice that. Did you notice that?
Yeah, when he says there's 5 billion people living just like that.
Yeah.
And I went, how did you pick that number? Like, are you excluding India and China?
Yeah.
Or something? That's a strange exclusion to make.
It was a strange
I can
exclusion.
tell you right now, there's probably an equal number of people in India and China who just sit around the house not doing anything.
I did feel like, and look, parents are like this dad. I'm a hard ass, but then I'm just going to give you everything.
Well, this
You know?
is...
And for me, it's like, well, just stop giving him all that shit. You know, like charge him rent, charge him for food, charge him to like do whatever, and he will either move out or he'll actually like change his life, right?
This is my wife. My wife and I were talking about this. We looked at that scene and we went, "So, kiddo, you don't like it there in this obviously rich mansion with your food and everything all taken care of.
Yeah.
So, but you're not. You've got your own job, but you're not leaving to live your own life. You keep saying, "I'm going to live my own life,"
Yeah.
but you're living with your dad.
Yeah.
I think it's quite reasonable that your dad's sort of saying, "Well, do something,"
Yeah.
because everyone wants their kids to do something.
Yeah.
And yet he just stays there, and we're like, again, why doesn't the dad say, "Okay, you want to live your own life? That's fine. Can you please move out?"
Yeah. It's time to move on.
Yeah, it's like,
But I do
go
know
and live your life.
I do know firsthand, even with my parents and my siblings, that they were kind of like that dad in a way. You know, like, oh, you should go to uni, you should do this, but never kicking anyone out of the actual nest. You know, so yeah, I do know. But it just felt like, oh, there's a simple to the dad. I was on the dad side.
yeah,
And I was kind of like, yeah, there's a simple way to kick him out. Like, charge him rent, make it uncomfortable, make it awkward, and he's going to move out.
well, I got the ultimatum, which was at 18. You're 18, so you can go to university, and we'll help you get there, and that's
Yeah.
not a problem. Or you can move out and get a job.
Yep.
But you're not staying here
Yes.
for now. And I went, oh, okay. I don't want to work. I'd better start looking into this whole how do you get to university.
All right then. I'm going to uni, Mum.
It's really the main reason I went was because I wasn't ready to go to work yet.
Yeah, fair enough. I would choose that as well. At the diner, the boss confronts Wendy over the broken tray, and Wendy just lifts her up. Very Arnie Schwarzenegger style. Lifts her up by the throat. Holds her up high. And this is a big woman. And basically tells her, no.
Yes.
I can't quite remember what
She just told her to back off.
back off and
Yeah, because then later on, she goes and says that she's going to get her promotion.
Yeah, that's right. That happened.
She said, "You said I've got to be affirmative and strong, and
I'm
do
all
this
those
other thing,
things,
and
aren't
I'm
I?
all those
Oh,
things
yeah.
now."
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, you are. Yeah, sure. Bloody Arnie. Why was I reading this book? Wendy follows the mermaids, and we come across. I'm in Perth Ubex group on Facebook. They would freaking love this place. It's an old marine park.
Ubex?
Yeah, that's what it's called. So it's like people go to like homes that no one's lived in for 50 years.
Oh, okay.
and
There's
they film
urban
it.
explorers.
Yeah, urban
Urbex.
explorers,
I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, so-
no, I watched some of those like videos and photos.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
I know, and even in Perth, there's like a couple of places I never heard of that. One got burnt down in the bushfires. It was an old house that they were starting to say there was too much trouble going on out there. But like, there's an old health facility in like Netherlands that I never knew existed. There's apartment blocks in Maylands.
There's a couple old factories along there.
There's the
Kwinana
Swan
Coast.
Districts Hospital as well that is heavily guarded, but people love breaking into that and filming. But
There
there's
is
also like somewhere
Neptune's Kingdom up
there's
in Two
yeah, they
or
do
wherever
go
it was.
up there a bit, but that's pretty open. Like it's only really like the pools and stuff are all gone up there, you know. But there's also like the old West Australian government. Oh, what do they call it? Where they do all the horticulture, and this is a Pentagon sort of styled building. And I don't know which suburb it belongs in, and they've moved out in like 1999. And this is the weirdest part. People have gone in like recently and taken photos. This is the weirdest part, sorry. It's a government building. You'd imagine they'd evacuate everything. No, there's still like files with paperwork in it.
Oh.
You're like, so when they upgraded the building, why weren't those files shifted? That was bizarre, isn't it? Like, even in Swan Districts hotels, there's files and stuff in there, you think. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Odd.
I'm going off on a tangent. Anyway, she goes to this place that's an old water theme park,
Yes.
And it's really quite cool. It's and it's all overgrown, and there's weeds and vines, and there's kind of an empty pool, all that kind of thing going on. And she's there to find Marek, the homeless man. And this is an old Neptune park. And homeless man explains to her that why she can throw people is that she's a superhero. She's got superpowers.
I quite liked this. What do you call it? An illusion or that thing where they talk about one thing but they're talking about something else. And the interesting thing is he's saying, there's lots of us. We're doing all this stuff. You're like us. You're family.
Yep.
And she's clearly getting concerned more about the possible consequences of being so special, and like the fact that he's homeless and living in this junk place.
Yeah.
And she points out, we're not family. I already have a family.
Yeah.
Which I think was a really good way of bringing around the point. Okay, this is a nice little kind of fairy tale for a homeless dude.
Yeah.
But like I've got there's bills to pay, there's people to feed, there's a husband and a child, and like all these real life issues here. You're talking about not crazy stuff, but you're talking about stuff that would be sweet and fine, single, unattached, no kids.
Yeah.
You could kind of explore this side of things, but I quite like the way we're able to bring all of those concepts into this.
Yeah, definitely.
With just that one statement, that I already have a family.
Yeah, yeah.
Because maybe if you were a youngster who didn't have a family, watching this movie, you may not have gotten that. But I was watching that, and when she sort of said that, I went, could you imagine I've got superpowers and then some homeless dude is like, this guy lost his family.
Yeah.
But it just sort of tells you all these things and how we should do this, and we'll find each other, and like you're kind of going, oh my God, but the next school term starts and I have to get new shoes for my son, and there's that, insurance bill that is not going to pay itself.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're talking about a highfalutin thing which could be crazy talk or it could be real, but in any case, it's so far removed from my daily life that.
Well, whatever. I think you're exactly explaining it well. It's also like, it's not like going to Professor X's huge rich school for the gifted.
Geez, yeah, you rock up there and he says, "And you're one of us now," and you kind of go,
"Yeah, okay, no worries."
Can I bring my family in here? Yes, of course. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I could be one of you.
Yeah, I can be one of you. Yeah. Whereas it's like, you're homeless and you've basically got one of those serial killer murder boards with people's photos on it.
Do people really do
the strings and stuff?
If there's any listeners out there who has like a serial killer murder board or
I kind of have one with my beat board,
like
beating
strings.
the crap out of my.
What's the strings and the
strings,
push
like
pins
and
push
the
news
pins,
articles
push pins,
and photos? Like, how does all that work to do anything?
Yeah, let me tell you about it. Sorry, as a writer.
Well, usually it's people chasing serial killers that have
it. Is. It's normally the detectives, isn't it?
The serial killer room is the one with little Bible scripture and stuff written on the walls.
Yeah, or they might have like 1,000 photos of you, and they've got little love
on
hearts.
The eyes are scribbled out.
Yeah, and they've got love hearts and like Surrey and Mark forever. That kind of pinboard thing.
Well slipped in there.
Yeah, that's right. So it's good that she says, no, I've got a family, and I think most of us would be like, I'm not going to live in an old marine park when I've got family to feed, and at this point in time, she's not really sure what's going on.
She gets home,
and things are a little bit worse to wear. The boy quizzes his mum about, are we being kicked out of the house?
So look at this empty swimming pool.
There's an empty swimming pool. It's a nice touch. She says no, like we're promising. Even though she does, I think we might have jumped over, but she had opened a letter previously sort of saying eviction or whatever. And they've got an empty swimming pool and can't afford the bills and all that sort of stuff. They play soccer together, and of course she kicks the ball out into space, basically.
Imagine if she'd hit the kid. Yeah, oh, my goodness.
I always think with that, which, never works in a comedy, but it's very Austin Powers that some guy out there would be just walking along and it just, like, hits him and kills him, Like, it's, that idea. Elmar, he's at home, about to have a wank. No, not in this scene, actually, is he? No. That happens a little bit later. Sorry, I'm jumping. I was just got excited about the beatboard.
Okay,
sorry.
now this is the sex. Not
this is sex in this, and this is a really cool scene because all we are in is Elmar's room. He's very uncomfortable because he can hear his father and not his mum having very loud, sex in the other room, and that's worse enough. And he kind of puts up with it for a minute. And it stops, the climax stops, and he's like, oh, thank God, he can relax into his comic book. And then his dad comes into the room, still breathing heavily. I've got an idea. And he's like...
all sweaty.
All sweaty. And he goes, I know how to solve your problem. And it's like, have you just been thinking about that while you've been having sex? Or, like, you've just had the euphoria of sex, and you're like, I've got the plan for my son. This is what he needs. It was a pretty gross scene, that one, wasn't it?
It was so sweaty, and
so maybe the father is actually trying to push him out of the home. I mean, come on, what's Elmar doing putting up with it? I mean, geez, I don't think I would put up that at his age.
I know, and he's sitting there going, looking all disgruntled, and he's like,
it is your father's house. It's not your house.
Like, you don't have to be there.
No, you can leave.
It doesn't say his actual age, but it says he's in his late 20s. Which would make sense because if he's trying to pick up on Wendy, who is also in her late 20s.
Yeah, right. I've always thought he was just like 18 or 19.
Yeah, it looks like that, but someone mentions your late 20s living at your parents, your dad's house. Oh, that was Marek says that.
Yeah, right. So we go from that. So the father comes in, tells him that he has to make a life for himself. It's up to him, Doesn't kick him out still, but that's pretty much what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, just kick him out. I mean, Jesus. Wendy rocks up at the psychologist at night time. It's all locked up. She can't get through the front door. And this is a pretty cool moment, isn't it? She looks up. There's a window open, maybe third or fourth floor up. And she just kind of musters up enough energy to jump. And she jumps, misses it, and just comes sliding down and bang.
Hits the wall, comes sliding down.
That's kind of really nice. And then so she gathers herself again, her senses, and just repeats it, but this time smashes through a window.
Smashes the window next to the open window.
So her powers are not only super strength, she can also super jump or something, right?
See, this is an interesting thing about super strength, which is sometimes not made apparent, but because of Newton's laws of motion, every action having an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah, right.
If you have the strength to be able to punch through a brick wall, then your body has the endurance to withstand the strength to punch through a brick wall.
Yes.
Otherwise, the moment she did some super strength thing, the tendons would just rip from the bones or shatter her skeleton.
Yep.
And she would fall in a puddle on the ground, a twitching muscle.
Yes.
Likewise, if you can jump 3 stories high, you can survive falling 3 stories.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe not onto your head, but landing on your hands and legs, whatever, Same as, I can jump 30 centimeters high.
Yeah, and you're fine.
I can land from 30 centimeters high. My body is strong enough because, in fact, you could fall even further because the, terminal velocity and falling force and so forth. But it is something about super strength comes with a certain amount of invulnerability just by the fact that in order for your body to maintain its coherence, whilst you exert super strength, you must be able to resist super strength.
But it's not to say that she's not only super strength, that she can super jump or whatever. But it is just because you're super strong doesn't necessarily mean you could super jump.
No, it could just be your arms that are super strong.
Yeah.
Which would be... Again, kind of.
Or
difficult.
do you have the strength to? Are you so strong that you can? Because this would be some sort of physics law, wouldn't it? Is you're so strong that you could kick a soccer ball out into outer space. Could you actually pick yourself up and throw yourself up 3 stories high?
Well, that's what jumping is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. So, is that just that makes sense, right?
But I want to see
makes sense to a writer
where someone standing on soft ground tries to do a big super jump and just hammers their feet into the dirt. Just like pins themselves in the ground.
That's
because
very
again,
true.
that's Newton's laws.
That would be
In order for you to throw yourself upwards, you need to throw something downwards.
Yeah, and also like, is she strong? Like, when she landed, should there be a hole in the concrete?
It depends on how far she fell. I don't think she fell far enough. It's cobblestones made for driving on.
Yeah, so they can take a fair bit.
But if it was something a bit softer, tiles or something, you'd imagine, she'd leave a bit of mark. If she jumped like on tiles, you get that cracking going on.
Anyway, let's get back into the plot. That's a good little bit of science talk there. She crashes through the window, starts rummaging through Dr. Stern's files, and she discovers that there's other superheroes, and I think a couple of them say missing or deceased, and then one is Elmar. And so that kind of grabs her, and she's like, "Oh, Elmar. Maybe I should have gone for that beer, Elmar." This is what she's thinking. So she heads to his place. This is where he's about to have the wank, or he's having the wank of the superheroes.
He's written the comic of the... Because he's written the comic with the Superwoman character who holds someone up.
Which was Wendy holding up her boss.
He sort of saw that, I think.
He did, yeah.
So he's kind of a bit going on there. And
he's a bit obsessed about Wendy, I think.
Starting to have a bit of a go under his dunic over there.
Yeah.
When,
and Wendy kind of doesn't mind. She sort of watches on for a little bit.
I think she's amused. The Germans aren't so prudish.
No.
And
she says, "Don't mind me."
Yeah, don't mind me. And he's like, "Oh!"
We can have a conversation while you do that.
He has that sudden electric shock things like being caught. Jumps around the place. Yeah, and she tells him about the pills and says,
Stop taking them.
You got powers. Stop taking them. Which I have to admit, really it's a bit irresponsible because you could say, so Dr. Stern is going about this sedating people. But the reality is she sedated a child who at school killed someone by accident. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. As I said, because there's not enough to actually have an organisation like Professor X with his school to look after them, it makes a lot of sense to sort of, inhibit their powers to allow them to operate normally.
Yeah.
So you go and just go, okay, Elmar, stop taking drugs. So you go, how do you know that he's not a psychotic serial killer or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Which it turns out he is a bit unstable.
Yes.
But tells him go, and then, just as Dad starts coming in, she ducks out and nicks off, and Dad's got like the golf club or something funny, because whatever. But she's now fully... I think she's kind of... This is the fun and games. She's kind of owning her strength.
Totally the fun and games.
And her strength her
newfound
confidence.
Strength. Yeah.
And then she has this repeat of her first day where she goes and she easily shifts the kegs. She pushes
she just
the
lifts
car.
them up.
She pushes the car out of the place.
Yep. Freaks out the mum. She comes across the boys bullying her son. This time they're really physically bullying the son. They've got him tied up in the goals.
Holding him at the goals to kick the ball into him, basically.
And they threaten her this time. What are you going to do? Hit us? And she goes, "Oh, these your bikes?" And I did think this was a really clever parental move. And she just twists them, bend them into a big pile of rubbish.
Yes.
And that kind of, the bullies are...
That shut them up a fair bit.
Shut them up a bit.
Elmar comes up.
Elmar at work.
Late at night in the end of shift sort of thing. Elmar comes around holding a big light bulb and says, "I have powers or something or other." And she's like, oh, I'm a bit overwhelmed by this sudden attack. He holds up the light bulb and makes it glow. And there's kind of... Oh, that's really exciting, yeah.
Yeah, well, they have a connection, I think, don't they? There's like a bit more of a true connection there. And so they go off and have a beer on the top of a rooftop, and they debate names of superheroes. And she talks about Laser Bitch.
Yeah,
be called Laser Bitch.
And Elmar brings up the things, we should be heroes, we should save people, which is... it's a funny thing because, again, people don't need that much saving.
No.
Unless you got... If you're Professor X and you could, detect where people needed saving, that would be really helpful. But otherwise, you're just standing there going, what do I do? Just kind of walk around until I see something? But I've walked around late at night and you don't see Jack.
No, you don't really. No, you can't. It's hard to see it, isn't it? Even in crime hotspots, you don't see a lot. And the most likely thing you're going to see is maybe two drunk dudes fighting, so
maybe someone having to go get into a car.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, but to actually notice it, isn't it? Like there might be someone doing it, but they're probably. It's the old thing with all the insurance companies talk about one of the biggest security deterrents of people breaking into your house is just a barking dog.
Yeah.
It's the most successful thing. It's still today in Australia, it's like 45% likely to just deter someone from coming into your property. Even if they couldn't get past your locked doors and stuff, if you have a barking dog or a dog in your yard, they just go, well, why would I go over your fence when your neighbour doesn't have a dog? So it's not easy to see crime happening around you all the time,
No, it would be tackled very quickly if it was, I guess.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, and I found this funny, she goes up and kicks in an ATM.
She does.
And gets the money.
Yeah, just takes the money.
Which again strikes me as this is why, of course, superpowered people do need to have regulation of some sort.
They need the pills, according to Surrey.
Well, as I said, it depends on population levels. At the population level, if she was the only one, yeah, it wouldn't make much difference because, as I said, people smash in ATMs all the time.
Yeah, they do.
But if you've got enough
all
people...
the time.
Well, I did it last week, I just put my card in, money comes out.
Oh, right. Wow.
Magic.
Is that how you get the money out?
Yeah.
My card never has any money in it.
I think Pip puts it there.
Okay. Can I have some too, Pip?
Yeah, you have to ask
Can I have an allowance, please, Pip? It was a nice scene, but because they talked about, they debated that, like, in the movies, and that's what these movies always do, like the wannabe ones that we're talking about, like they go, well, in the movies they have a sidekick, or in the movies they fight crime but then they help people and they kind of become a gang or like a team and it's like, yeah, but you're looking around going, they kind of, Elmar and Wendy are looking at each other going, well, that's not really who we are, like how do you figure that out? And then they also go, well, Elmar says, well, you need supervillains.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, but where do we find that? And it's like, oh yeah, well,
just
we don't
take
know.
enough people off pills.
Yeah.
You'll
find someone. And he goes to kiss her and she rejects him. The first of many rejections. He's like, but I was wanky. Anyway, it cuts to a dance at a club and they're having a good time. And they see these sleazy guys walk up to kind of this couple and, there's kind of a posse of guys and they pour a beer over one guy and they're talking to his girlfriend. And then so she's like, oh, they're bad guys, so... Yeah. And so she goes up and flirts a bit with them. And there's a nice moment there because it just cuts from the flirting and we don't even see. We're just kind of slowly coming into the male bathroom and these guys have kind of like flung all around the bathroom and one guy's having his head smashed into the wall and all that kind of thing. So it's a kind of a pretty cool moment. She returns home and her husband has passed out. She gives him the big pile of cash and says, we're staying.
He says, did you rob a bank? She says, yes, of course.
Yep, but he doesn't question that. And then she really gets into making love with him. Elmar, meanwhile, has ordered and tries on this really lame superhero costume. It's kind of like probably what your son or my son or daughter, these fancy dress costumes that are like Batman and Iron Man. You put them on and they're so sloppy and loose. And they've got like, the painted on six pack. So they look really pathetic in a way, don't they? It's cute on a little child, but it looked really pathetic on Elmar.
Yeah, he was trying to cinch it in at the waist.
Yeah, he was trying to pull it over his ass, tighten the ass bit. And not a mum.
Not mum.
Not mum. Comes in and she sort of laughs and he goes, yeah, it looks pretty lame. It's so much cooler on the internet. Yeah, so he's kind of left to that. And the son at Wendy's house wakes up and the pool is full of water. Sorry, that's what money does.
Apparently from a hose.
Just from a hose. Well, Wendy's a superhero. She turned it on when she came home and
turned it on real hard.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He came home to the pool and that was pretty fun. And then Dad jumps in and then we start to have like a little
happy moment,
montagey style of happy moments where. They're jumping in the pool and they're having fun and they're...
Yeah, and it's a good, like you mentioned before, fun and games. This is kind of like an upbeat for Wendy's family, right? Yeah. So she's now confident, she's having a good time, she's stolen the money, she's feeling a bit, she beat up those bad guys, she's feeling empowered, isn't she? She's feeling more in herself, she can provide for her son. I think actually also he woke up to new football boots as well, didn't he?
Yeah, new football boots. Yeah.
We go then to police are laughing and they're interviewing one of the injured men from the nightclub. And he's saying, yeah, we all got beaten up by a girl. And they're like, ha, 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 you all 5 of you. So it's
a bit rough, really, because they have been beaten. Like, a crime has occurred.
Yeah. And he's got a broken nose.
They're saying that this one woman did it. You can't just laugh at him. Like, you go, okay.
She must have been a big woman. Was she?
Your understanding is that one woman did this.
Yeah.
That may or may not be true, but we need to investigate this, and you've clearly suffered trauma.
No, this is obviously the German way, Surrey. They just laugh at...
I would have expected you to have been beaten up by 5 big burly men. You are one little girl.
One little girl did this to you? We're not... we could be...
I will laugh at you. Take my scorn.
Anyway, they exit the interrogation room and in comes Dr. Stern and she turns off the recorder and just says, it's nice, she used the same line of dialogue, didn't she? She said, so, you were beaten up by one girl.
Yes.
So it's the exact same line, the police were laughing, no, tell me about it.
I'm wondering if that guy in the interrogation room got really scared and he's like, oh, it's another one.
It's a woman.
And you don't want me to talk about it. You've taken the tape out and you're silencing me. No. Yeah. But no.
No. So, you can see that behind the scenes, she's finding out stuff. Wendy and Elmar go to Marek at the marine park and he explains that there's a psychological ward, there's a centre, a clinic, and it's keeping all the superheroes. They're basically just sedating them. And they need to go there and rescue. Elmar, So they come up with the plan to go free all the superheroes.
Yeah, Marek's not so convinced because he's like, no, we're not like that. We're not. Yeah. We can't be doing that.
Yeah.
That's why they have a prison like that.
Yeah.
But he gets in on the vibe, I think.
Yeah.
He's vibing.
So they head off to this centre another night, and the husband kind of wanted to have a bit of a sexy night. Titanic, champagne.
Yeah,
I've never tried that before. Maybe I should try that. Champagne and the Titanic. King of the world, I think he says.
Tanya into Titanic?
No, I don't think so. But, just thought, he seemed to think this is going to work on Wendy.
Yeah, well, Wendy, draw me like you drew those German girls.
Yeah.
Oh my god, stop, don't stop, oh my god.
She enters and seduces the guard, and Elmar cuts the power to the cameras.
Elmar had his costumes.
He had his costumes.
And it was basically like a dominatrix.
With
a rubber mask.
With a rubber mask. And he's in now like a kind of beefed out suit, Elmar, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's funny with his lightning bolt.
Yeah, he's like... what's his name? Electro Man.
Electro Man.
Yeah. So Wendy sort of dismisses the outfit. But then I was thinking when she went in and seduced the guard, I'm like, you are on video camera and, you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, well, they always
the whole point of a costume is to actually hide your face.
A whole secret identity business. Yeah. She's got a wig on, I guess. She goes in and wants...
It's like always the joke with Clark Kent and Superman just being the glasses, It's like, hey, Clark, you look a lot like not with the glasses. No.
Oh, okay.
They can't be the same person.
No, not at all. She goes in and seduces the guard by saying she needs to go to the toilet and then kind of hinting that
he could come with her.
He could
come and watch or something.
Watch her pee? Is that something that people do? I
think that is a thing. I don't know. You might have to look up Pornhub there. Sorry.
Watching people. I don't think I will. So
I'm sure there's a whole thing about it.
Then we cut to her gaffer taping him up. Yeah. So he's done it. And they
I don't think he ever got to watch her pee.
I know, so disappointing.
It's always disappointing for the security guards.
He should have just sort of gone, well, you could have at least done a little piece, you know. But the other two, Marek and Elmar, come in and they go, oh, the security cameras, and Elmar just like zaps the thing.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
I'm hoping that got the hard drives and not just turn the monitors off, because it's the recording that counts. But anyway, they sneak in through and they're peeking through the windows and stuff. Yeah, and they see some, you know, people looking a bit lost.
Yeah, they do. They see there's an art room, like an art therapy room.
And Elmer's a bit dismissive, isn't he? He goes, freaks.
Yeah.
And then he gets himself a coffee from the vending machine because he can just zap it and make it work, which is just a little bit silly.
Yeah. And this is where, while he's sort of piss-farting around like that, this guard comes running and shoots, and Marek steps in front of Elmar and gets shot, and the bullet just bounces off him, which is pretty cool.
Drops to the ground.
Yeah, and then they take out the guard nice and quickly. They decide that because there's now the alarms going off, the guards are coming, that they should just flee. And so they run out of the building, and they're confronted outside by quite a large group of guards.
This is also a bit of a problem, I think. These guards are very poorly trained. There must have been 8 or 12 of them surrounding them, pointing guns inward. If any of them fired and missed, they would kill the other guard. And if they all fired, there would have been at least
Dr.
one
Stone,
guard.
you haven't trained the guards very good.
There would have been at least one guard casualty out of that. I got to tell you right now.
And anyway, Elmar just electrocutes them all because it's raining at the time and zaps them all, which is a nice escape. And they flee. They have a bit of a confrontation over it, but afterwards where Marek doesn't really like what went down, and neither does Wendy. And Marek then he reveals in the argument that he actually lost his wife and child. He had to pay the ultimate price for trying to be a superpower with them. He doesn't give us more of that, and he says he can't live in society like this. He's retreating back to his homelessness.
Yes.
And Wendy kind of storms off as well. So Elmar's kind of annoyed by the whole situation because he sort of thought, hey, we're all,
he doesn't see the problem.
He doesn't see a problem with any of it, no. So it's a cool junction point as a writer, isn't it? Because you've got 3 characters with superpowers. Together, they're pretty unstoppable as well, if they could work together. But yeah, each one has sort of got a different understanding of the power, isn't it?
Yeah, a different relationship with the power.
Yeah, and how that relationship should be used in society. So when Wendy returns home, her husband is nice and drunk because he had to watch Titanic all on his own and drink all the champagne.
God.
So he accuses her of having an affair, which she just kind of denies at that point in time. But he storms off. Marek is then in the back in the underwater world, Neptune Park place. And he's staring at this article where it says a wife and child died in this horrific crash. But again, we don't know much, but we realise there's some sort of attention to his life there. She's underwater. She's holding her breath.
Yeah, that was sort of a bit weird. She seemed to be a long time.
A long time, yeah. And then she noticed someone moving, so she kind of jumps out of the water, grabs the guy, and it's her son. He kind of asks her about, well, are you guys getting divorced? Dad watched Titanic on his own last night. That's very unusual. Normally you guys watch Titanic and then you have a really good time.
Yeah, normally if Dad is watching Titanic, it's not by choice.
No.
Unless Dad's a real fan of Leo and Kate Winslet.
Just let him back on let him back on the board. There was plenty of room on that bloody board.
Yeah, what was that? I've read a thing. It's the story of a rich woman making her poor boyfriend freeze to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, good on you, Richie.
Anyway, she converses with her son. Sorry, no, her son saying, No, we're not getting divorced. It's going to be okay. So they have their little moment. Elmar is now with not mum, and they're conversing about his actual mum, which is a weird conversation. He's also acting a lot more confident and over the top. And he takes control of the house lighting and the speakers and starts playing the music, and he starts flicking the light. It's almost like there's ghosts in the house, really.
And that's what he's trying to convince her of, is that mum's ghost is in the house.
Yeah, she's still here. And not a mum runs fleeing for her life with her belongings.
Good choice.
Good choice, I think. Yeah, and then Wendy talks to her husband. They have a big chat it out. She does say that she had a little thing happen with Elmar,
which I found funny because they went to a nightclub.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it felt a bit funny anyway. But she wants to stay and be married. And do their thing.
And nicely, I think.
Yeah.
He went, look, okay, I do love you, and we should
continue to work this out.
That was quite an unusual plot twist, really, because you would have expected
him to storm off.
That to be a catalyst. So he's left, and now she's got nothing left to lose but to Hulk out or something.
Yeah.
But no, he hangs around.
Yep.
Which is nice. He's a nice boy.
Elmar then starts a bit of a plan in motion. He goes to Dr. Stern and he kind of comes as his old self, really petite, and the glasses are back on, and kind of, I've been having my meds, but I'm really concerned about Marek. This Marek guy came and confronted me, and he's off at this Neptune park, and I think he wants other people to be superheroes with him, and so that he's kind of starting some sort of plan. We then have this kind of cutting between scenes start to happen. So we're at this barbecue kids party back at Wendy's house. The kids are having fun. They're in the pool. Wendy and her husband seem to have kind of reconnected a little bit again. And then we cut into a SWAT team kind of invading the Neptune park. And then we're back at the barbecue and the kids are kind of splashing, having fun. And then we're back to the
bully kids are there.
The bully kids, but she sort of stares them down.
Says, I'm looking at you, and
they seem to be having a bit of a chuckle about it all. That time you bent my bike. Just do what she says. And then the SWAT team kind of pounce on Marek, and they tie him up, and Dr. Stern is there as well, isn't she? And she kind of that's right. They get gassed, and
they gas him. And Elmar rocks up at the party and just about murders a child.
Yes, he does. So he's really turned into the bad guy.
Yeah, young boy says, "Oh, are you the clown?" Yeah. And he says, "What? The clown?" He says, "Yeah, you're
the entertainment."
The entertainment. And he says, "No." He says, "Oh, I'm Electro Man." And the guy laughs and says, "Well, like Batman?" He says, "Yes." And he says, "Well, Batman's better." He says, "No, Batman just has gadgets and toys. He's a rich guy. He just spends all his money. Yeah. And I could just come in there and put one finger in, and he starts coming over, and then Wendy comes over and grabs him and says, "What are you doing here? Come along." And he's because he's wearing his full superhero regalia.
Yeah.
Which is, and this is the funny thing, also in superhero movies where they walk around like that, you kind of, it's a bit weird.
So odd, isn't it?
It's a bit weird. So he walks with him into the house and says, "What the very heck are you doing here, man?"
Yeah, and he still wants to be with her. He shows her the comic book where it's like two superheroes coming together and they've got a baby.
They're holding hands, and their hands make a little love heart.
Yeah, and they've got a baby, so it's like they're going to have a super baby.
Yeah.
They were to get it on, but she says no, she loves her husband, she's staying with him, he's got to, jerk off. And so he's a rejected superhero walking down the street, and he comes across, there's two cyclists that kind of have a good chuckle, and so he changes the lights to cause a bit of a deadly car crash with them.
Yeah, is that nice?
And walks on sort of smirking. Wendy now sort of reveals everything to her husband about being a superpower, and he sort of goes, "Oh yeah, no worries, it's all good." And he sort of turns around to call Dr. Stern, and she throws him through a wall, basically a wooden wall.
Hurts his arm,
and everyone there at the party, all the family and friends, kind of like, "Oh, geez, it's a bit of domestic abuse going on."
Yeah, they're sort of looking in with those.
I would have thought they would have done with the police officer. "Oh, you got beat up by a girl." But maybe they know Wendy's more
Domestic
serious.
abuse is always a laughing matter.
That's right.
Here in Germany, we laugh at...
Well, no, we don't laugh at it if it's a man hurting a woman, but if it's a woman hurting a man, how can you be really hurt?
Yes.
Anyway, then Elmar and his dad have a real moment. And his dad apologizes, and Elmar says, "When's the last time you hugged your son?" And he's like, "You're right. We should hug it out." And I was like, "Oh, okay. This is a bit of a change." It was really, and then he just actually electrocutes him.
Well, this has got Wendy's coming up behind it to talk to Elmar. Like, I need to straighten stuff out, and she sees this.
Yes, she does.
And she runs in and tries to help the dude, and
can't.
Can't. And then she gets zapped by him.
Yeah.
Unconscious.
And she wakes up in the clinic with Dr. Stern. She's all tied up. This is a nice twist in the story. I was not expecting this. I kind of thought, we'll head into just a confrontation probably between Elmar and Wendy, on top of the buildings, good old superhero battle kind of, so to speak. But she's really at Dr. Stern's mercy. She's been fed the blue pills.
She's got the drip
through
in
the
her
drip,
arm.
so she's lost her power. And Dr. Stern, this is where Dr. Stern really explains, look, I'm just protecting you guys. Like, I'm here, I'm helping you. I'm protecting you from danger, And she has a flashback to the start where her mum and herself are in the principal's office. And the principal is talking about discipline.
Yes.
And, Wendy's been acting out and not being disciplined enough.
Yes, we're not going to address any issues or any reasons why she might be doing this.
No, we don't do
Instead,
that.
we're going
Education.
to confiscate her Walkman.
Yes, let's start with this Walkman.
Yes.
And it really pisses Wendy off, and Wendy just literally throws him out through the wall, the whole desk.
Tosses the table, doesn't it?
Yeah, tosses it in. There you go.
Yeah, unfortunately, the principal's stuck between the desk and the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dr. Stern is saying, look, I can help you if you let us. And she turns up the medicine, so, she's going to drug her out a bit more. And this is also kind of good that her husband and Dr. Stern have a conversation, and she says, look, Wendy had a relapse. We've got to, dose her up. We've got to have her for a while, and, maybe she'll come back. But also, I think we need to test your son. And I was like, oh, that's a little...
Well, she just said she needed to talk to him because he might have had some trauma.
Yeah, but you could see what the reason was, yeah.
Yeah, sure enough, she does prescribe.
She does, yeah, because you see him later take it. Anyway, Wendy starts. There's a nice little montage here. She takes pills. The pills arrive. She takes pills. She kind of paints. She's kind of you can see the light is going out in her eyes. More pills arrive. She takes them. She swallows them. She's with the others. She takes pills, she swallows them. She notices Marek and she recognises him, but he doesn't recognise her. So there's a nice little kind of moment of her really becoming weak and nothing. And then it even ends. She's trying to open a jar.
Yeah,
and she can't open this jar.
I
of
joked
paint.
to my wife, "There's the jalapenos."
Yeah.
I always because the lid on that damn thing is so wide. I've got little hands.
Yeah,
I got short, stubby fingers and wide palms. I can't get a proper grip, and so I really felt for her at that. That's the jalapeno.
It's not.
jar.
It's a really nice moment, isn't it? You got to remember those moments as a writer because she, here she is. She threw someone through a wall, and yet she can't now open a jar. And then that's Elmar rocks up. He apologizes to her. She doesn't want to know anything about it. And he actually gives her the old headphones, which is a bit of a nice touch. And he tells her he will free her from this place.
You're being held back. You mentioned it before that your family's holding you back. I can free you.
Yeah.
And I know you immediately get that sinking feeling. You go, oh, that's not good.
It's not good at all. Elmar's got a bit of an evil plan.
And he takes off. We don't see where he goes specifically.
She's stuck in her prison.
But then the power goes out in the place.
And it does. It cuts from there, that sinking film, it cuts from there to the son taking the pills.
Yes.
At home with the dad, and the lights go out. And so they start to have a father-son moment about the light,
Is it the end of the world?
End of the world, no. Just because we don't have batteries and TV, we can read a book. And it's the same at the clinic. The lights go out and the doors unlock. And we cut back to the husband. There's a knock on the door. So he goes and Elmar's there at the front door, and they have a real confrontation, and Elmar gets knocked out by the husband.
I like that.
Yeah, I did that too.
Elmar can electrocute, but he's not particularly tough.
No, he's not tough, and then he offers to shake on it, which you're like, oh,
there's Electro Man, don't shake hands.
Don't shake hands. And then at the clinic, they're all sort of escaping, and Wendy's kind of running from some guards, and all the prisoners are, some are running, some are staying, some are a bit confused by it all.
And there's that one particular one that we see, that woman.
Yeah, the same woman over and over that we've seen a few times.
Nothing ever came of that.
No, nothing ever came of that. And Dr. Stern suddenly arrives with a couple of guards and stops her and says, you come back to your room, you'll be okay, it's all okay. Marek rocks up and kind of confronts and saves Wendy, and makes the situation kind of escalate a little bit. And he gets shot, and because he's been taking the medicine, doesn't have the powers.
He gets bloodied. Blood comes out and he looks a bit shocked.
Yeah. And
he falls down, and of course Stern is distraught. She's really unhappy about this, which is nice.
Yeah, but Wendy takes that opportunity, gives her a left hook.
Ka-pa-chow. And then it has this nice little moment with Marek where Marek sort of says, I finally get to see my wife and child again, which I thought was sort of funny. It was like, you're going to die.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's common, isn't it? Like, oh, well, my family have moved on, I'll move on. Other patients run free and Marek dies. We cut back to Wendy's house. It's the only house in the street, like, where the lights are kind of coming on and off and, all that sort of stuff. And Elmar and the boy are there. You can't see the husband.
Elmar's saying some garbage about Formula One cars racing. Yeah. It's an F-135 racing up against a blah, blah, blah. These things, that's just nonsense. It's ridiculous. It doesn't do anything.
So Wendy comes running in and confronts, but she's not strong anymore. So she gets overthrown pretty quickly. And she's kind of lying on the floor. And Elmar's kind of saying, well, I'm going to set you free. It's all good. You just got to come over to this side. She notices the husband. He's all tied up in the bathroom. And at this point, he's kind of managed to get himself a little bit free, and he throws the gloves out at her. And so she puts on these kitchen gloves. Oh, no, rubber gloves, sorry.
Pretty heavy rubber gloves,
And she runs at Elmar with all her strength and pushes really hard, and he gets pushed out the window and lands in the pool and electrocutes himself.
Yes, zip, zap, zoop.
The husband and Wendy have a moment. They talk about, like, a fresh start. He will protect her, which is a bit of irony.
Yes.
At the same time, then the SWAT team are all arriving, and you think, oh, no, they're going to get Wendy. And when they kind of barge into the house, the husband and the son are just sitting there with a dead body covered up, which says high voltage. Danger, high voltage.
Yes.
Danger, high voltage. When you touch.
Yes.
And Wendy's kind of just watching on then, like seeing her husband and son. She leaves the headphones for the son as a nice little kind of circle back to the start. And that she will take over Marek's work and bring together the superheroes. We're coming for them, she says. A group of them then stand on a rooftop. I presume
it's a mismatched group, though, isn't it?
It is. They don't look, and some of them have come from the centre.
Yes, we recognise them from the room, the painting room.
Yeah,
and I really liked this scene. It was
it's kind of epic.
It was an effort at epic because they did this bit of a take on this in the hospital entry. They're marching down the hall with a bit of a swagger, but it just didn't look like there was no bright lights and smoke behind them. Nope. And this again, likewise, they're standing with the wind whipping them. They're looking, and there's like an old woman, and then like sort of an overweight guy with sort of part of his hair bleached, and he's wearing like a hospital gown.
Yeah,
and like it's just totally mismatched, not heroic looking at all. But they're all in the heroic pose with the wind blowing, and we get a bit of voiceover of Wendy talking, saying we live right beneath their noses, and.
We'll open their eyes together.
Because in reality, you are one of us. You just don't know it. I can't help but feel they were aiming for a TV series.
Yeah.
Out of this. Like they kept showing that same woman. Because we saw her in the notes when she was looking through and found Elmar. And then we saw her a couple of times at the centre, the clinic.
Yes.
But then also, later on, like, it's just a bit odd.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, the film did this a little bit that, you know, not everything was totally solved, and that's always that, you know, Hollywood narrative, you know, like, you might have a character like that outside of the characters that we actually see in the narrative, but they're like, because that's the thing at the end, when she's pinning, she has her photo.
Yes.
You know, so she's the one that she might go and speak to next, but so she's not in this story yet. But you're right, it could become a TV show where she's kind of trying to piece together these superheroes.
Well, it is Netflix, and they do have the power to go, well, that movie was pretty cool. Would you like to do a TV series?
Or another movie, or, you know, make a trilogy kind of idea. So that brings us to the end of the narrative. What about, where does it fit on our ladder? Where would you recommend watching it, Surrey?
Somewhere in between 2001: Space Odyssey and The Matrix.
No, that's on our classics. This is our regular ladder. So for me, I really enjoyed this. It was a good, heartwarming kind of story. As I said before, it was like an experiment. It wasn't quite a, it wasn't really a warning, or it wasn't really hopeful in a way, although it has a positive end. But I did like how it made me feel, and quite often that's my gauge with a lot of these films, is basically how I'm walking away from the film, and like how it is making me feel about it, and also how much lingers with me. I think is always a good test. I liked this idea of wannabe superheroes. As a wannabe superhero styled film, although Wendy didn't necessarily want to be a superhero, she just wanted to have a kind of good life, I think. So for me, I'm bringing it in at number 9 on my regular ladder, and so that comes in after Interstellar and before the Australian film Infinity. How about yourself?
I pegged this one because I looked through and I thought, what on my ladder here? As you said, if I was watching films, where would it sort of fit nicely? And I put it in between Replicas and Serenity.
Okay.
So I'm going so Serenity is this kind of sort of fast-paced space western. It's a little bit, it's not humorous, but it's a light take on serious topics.
Yeah.
But then you got Replicas, which is sort of a bit of a darker take on this serious, same family type things.
Yeah,
and I thought, Freaks, You're One of Us, kind of in there.
Yep.
Sandwiched in there between, Nathan Fillion and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that's a good mix for a German science fiction superhero film. And what about the science? What science sticks out in this film for you, Surrey?
Well, real life superheroes.
Oh, yeah? Where are they? Show me.
Where are they?
Apart from yourself.
There's a couple. There's actually a couple. Okay, so there's one guy in particular is outstanding.
Are these people on medication then? Are they being toned down by the government?
Well, if this guy's been toned down, I'd hate to see what he's like when he's a full ball. No, so this guy here, Dean Karnazes, he is the ultimate endurance man.
Ooh.
He has literally run non-stop for 3 days and nights. The only reason he had to stop, he fell asleep.
Oh, there you go.
He holds the record for running 50 marathons. That's one in each US state in 50 days consecutively.
Wow. Okay.
So, that is essentially otherwise impossible. I've run a marathon. I did it twice, and you get to about the 30 to 32, 33 kilometer mark. You run out of glycogen in your muscle stores, and your body has to change over to, fat usage.
Yeah.
And at that point, you get hot, your muscles really start to hurt, and that's the wall they talk about. You hit this wall where all of your metabolism just goes bang.
Yep.
And you can't continue. You push through, but it's really not very pleasant.
Yeah.
He does not experience that.
Ah.
So they've done a number of tests on him because, quite seriously, for example, when he was in his high school days, he did a charity fundraiser where how many laps you do, you get paid per lap. And most of his fellow runners did about 15 laps of the oval.
Right.
He completed 105.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about like, oh, he did 16 or 17. Oh, he's a bit better.
Yeah.
He did almost like 8 times the number of laps. And then he stopped running.
Yeah.
Like after high school, he got a job and whatever.
Yeah.
He didn't run. Until about on his 30th birthday, he went, oh, you know what? I really like running. I remember that about 15 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so he went for a run. And so this is 15 years of no training.
Yep.
He's not done any running or any particular athletic sports.
Yep. He
ran 30 miles. So that's a marathon. That's 45 kilometres.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. I cannot express how mind-bogglingly insane that is.
Yeah.
If I went now, and I've been continuously cycling, I'm not doing so much running now because of a sore hamstring I had, but I cycle every day. I've done runs. As I said, I've run a couple of marathons. If I went right now and tried to run a half marathon, like 20 kilometres, I seriously wonder if I would make it before my legs seized up and I said, nah.
Yeah.
I mean, I might, because you don't actually hit that threshold point by then, but I would not want to have that occur to me.
Yeah.
Now, he stopped in that. He said he got sore blisters, but no muscle aches or pains, no problems.
Yeah.
So that goes far beyond normal human capabilities.
Definitely.
And in fact, they did a bit of experimenting and hey, let's have a look to see what's going on here. And in fitness, you've got a couple of different thresholds. So you've got the first one, which is your anaerobic threshold. So that is if you're picking up heavy bags of sand, for example.
Yeah.
You can do that, for a little while without breathing heavily. You can pick up a couple.
Yep. Because
you're just using the immediate blood glucose that's sitting readily available and can be immediately extracted.
Yep.
You don't need any particular cardiovascular effort to do that.
Uh-huh.
But there is a certain point where it crosses over and then you start breathing heavily because you need a lot of oxygen. You go into this aerobic metabolism, which uses oxygen, as the name says, to break down glucose or glycogen into glucose to give you the energy. But the process of your body using that energy creates lactic acid. Lactic acid then enters into a secondary cycle and is broken down to reform into glucose and further lactic acid.
Yeah, right.
But you can see, though, if you keep pushing yourself for longer and longer, eventually your burning glucose turns to lactic acid. Some of the lactic acid turns back into glucose to be turned into more lactic acid.
Yeah.
You start getting this buildup of lactic acid, and that causes your muscles to hurt. And so it's a self-limiting factor. So you can train your aerobic fitness to absorb more oxygen, but the rate at which you clear your lactic acid does not readily change much. Like it only changes a small amount with training.
Okay.
Not for this guy. For this guy,
no lactic acid.
He has got... So the way we clear lactic acid is we've got a couple of enzymes which readily break it down into glucose to be used. And we need to produce those enzymes with oxygen to do it.
Right.
He produces a lot of enzymes. He does not have a lactic acid threshold like you or I do.
Yeah.
He, in theory, would have one, but other parts of his physiology prevent him from reaching that threshold.
Yeah, right.
So he simply can't be fit enough to exert his muscles for long enough to have this build-up. And so as a result, he can literally run a marathon every day for 50 days.
Yeah, okay.
It's
incredible.
And at the end of it, he's got a couple of blisters, whatever.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Yep.
He did a marathon to the South Pole in negative 25 degrees centigrade.
Yep.
It's just, tell me this is not superhuman. It's a guy who's
superhuman, isn't it?
Sitting around doing another 15 years
and
then runs a marathon.
Yeah. It's like Forrest Gump.
On a whim. He just goes, I might go run. Yeah, he ran for, I think the longest run he's done is 350 miles non-stop. He gets sleepy on some of these runs they're going for so long. That's one superhuman. And literally a freak.
Yeah.
Because very few like him. So few, in fact, I couldn't find any others.
Examples, yeah.
But that's
That's
not
cool.
all.
Oh, no. More super freaks.
Now we're going to talk about myostatin.
Wow.
Myostatin is a hormone which blocks and inhibits the growth of muscle.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about this.
This is really helpful because our muscles, like our heart and our digestive system and the diaphragm for our lungs and of course all our skeletal muscles, we don't want them to grow out of control or our heart will go too big and we'll die.
Yep.
But if you have just enough inhibition of your myostatin, you're just the right genetic defect, then you grow big muscles and you're strong.
Yeah, right.
So there's this guy, Liam what's his last name? Hoekstra.
Good old Hoekstra.
So there'd be, is in Michigan. So it says here, he was adopted.
Yeah.
So don't really know who his parents are. Like, obviously it's recorded somewhere, I suppose. But by 8 months old, so at 5 months old, he could do the gymnastic move known as the iron cross. So that's where you see them on the rings, and they bring themselves up so their arms are out straight to either side. Yeah. So they're like in the cross formation.
Yes.
And that is an advanced move. Like a 5-month-old having that sort of body to weight strength is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
8 months old, he could do a pull-up. And at 9 months, he was going up and down stairs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
he's a super baby.
So the parents went, okay, this is unusual. Let's go make sure this is okay.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they found out that basically he had a variation in his myostatin gene, which gives him about 40% extra muscle, particularly located in his arms, shoulders, and legs.
Right.
It doesn't seem to affect his heart or internal organs.
Yeah.
So he's only mildly done, but he's not the strongest. It's
you do impressive. Wonder whether is he okay to enter the Olympics?
I know.
It's a question, isn't it? Is it genetic? Because it's genetically he's genetically modified in a way.
Well, after a German baby came into the light, who had a stronger myostatin gene mutation, he was a true mutation, as in they sequenced his DNA and went, bingo, that actually is a mutation on this particular gene here, which controls myostatin production. I think he's the one. It doesn't say in this article here on ABC News that I'm looking at the moment, but I remember reading that there was a couple athletes who were both Olympic and national level sprinters.
Yep.
Whose child had this, and they were German.
Right.
So I'm going to assume this German kid. And so they sequenced the parents and found that the parents had the recessive form of this gene in each of them. So because they both got together, they didn't have the same level of super muscles, but they're certainly extremely capable athletes.
Yeah.
And there is a question being asked then of, what was his name? John Faulkner is a professor of physiology.
Yeah.
They've been asked this question: can we detect gene doping?
Yeah.
With our gene manipulation technology nowadays, you could go in and alter an embryo to have this particular defect. Because they get old Liam's DNA and they go, okay, this is a very specific change, which is leaving it appears to leave him healthy and everything, except he has a very low body fat and a very high musculature.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't work out or anything.
Yeah.
And apparently he eats like a machine because he's got a very high metabolism.
Yeah.
Well, yes, you could just create babies
right.
like that.
Babies like that.
Yeah, they're not all going to turn out right. They're not, but would certain nations or seeking glory do it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Not? Yeah.
So maybe, but then there's also the thing is, what about drugs which mimic this and inhibit myostatin?
Yeah.
So But certainly, there you go. There's some super strength right there.
Definitely.
It does point out here that some mice, they've studied this in mice and some dogs where it happens. And there's also the Belgian blue. Do yourself a favour and Google images Belgian blue cow. The double muscle cow.
Double muscle cow,
They're crazy.
They are.
But it points out that certainly in mice, uncontrolled or muscle growth causes the tendons and ligaments to be brittle and they're not strong enough. So as I was saying in the movie where she does her big jump and so on, if you, in order to be able to actually exert your strength, you need a body strong enough to withstand it.
You do.
Because if you've got a muscle that could kick a soccer ball into space, then it could easily also kick your leg off. You could kick your foot off. If you swung your foot that hard against a soccer ball, the force hitting the soccer ball is the same force hitting your foot.
So you got to presume that Wendy's strength is on a cellular level throughout the whole body. Yeah.
So she's not going to be invincible like Marek was.
Yeah.
But she would, if you tried to punch her, it'd be like punching a brick wall.
Yes.
Because, if she could kick that soccer ball and her foot stayed on her leg, and she didn't wince or have any pain, then she is tough.
Yes.
Okay. There's a third one here, and this is a more common. I say more common; it's still pretty rare, but it is called highly superior autobiographical memory.
Okay.
So there are some people who essentially remember everything.
Yes.
Where you ask them a day in their life, you pick a random day in their life, and they can tell you what they were doing.
Yep.
And this can be corroborated by video footage and all sorts of things, where they just remember every single day. They remember all the features of it as if it was happening. And this is the sad thing. They don't forget anything either.
Yeah.
So one of the natural defenses we have against trauma is we forget stuff.
Yes.
So if someone was mean to us, we might still carry a certain discomfort maybe about the person, but the exact meanness we don't remember.
Yes.
If we fall over and break our arm, I haven't done that, but I've sprained my ankle plenty of times.
Yeah.
You forget what that pain really was.
Yeah.
These people, when they call up a memory, they get everything.
Yeah.
They haven't forgotten the pain or the emotion or the trauma. Pleasantly enough, and I was reading an interview with one of these people, they kept a diary list of good times and good days.
Right.
And so if they're having a bad day, they pull out their list and they look up, oh yes, 2nd of January 1992. That's why I got that puppy.
Yeah.
Oh, and they'll remember it. They'll actively recall it and be
get
filled
the endorphins.
They'll be filled with that joy that they had, rather than putting else. The sad thing is then it's. You ever heard that one? You can't not think about a purple rhinoceros.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the problem is if you ask someone, do you remember anything bad?
Yeah.
They're going to remember something bad. So you don't want to end up with a serious trauma with this type of memory.
Yes.
But this sort of perfect memory appears in a number of other ways. There's this guy I was reading about. He can listen to a piece of music once and then play it. So he'll listen to someone for the first time ever playing a piece of music on piano, and he'll sit down. He plays piano.
Yeah.
And he'll sit down and he'll start tink, 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 a couple of bits in it, and he'll you can hear him kind of working his way into it. He's concentrating. He tinks around a bit, and then he goes, okay. And then he plays the piece.
Yep.
Incredible. There's another guy, an artist. He does landscape, city skylines and so forth.
Yep.
They gave him a helicopter ride around Rome, about 10 minutes around the Rome skyline, and he sat down and just drew a detailed, accurate skyline of cityscape of Rome. There are definitely superpowers out there, and of course a lot of these things like to tell us that we do ourselves have superpowers, and in a way we do, of course, all of us, because we do have our brains, and our brains are capable of the most incredible thoughts, ideas, creation. And there's even things like there's this guy Wim Hof. I don't know if you've ever heard of that guy, the Iceman.
Yeah, the Iceman guy.
Most of what he does is, basically his brain tricking his body.
Yeah.
You know, like he is not more. He's not somehow immune to ice, but he is able to control his pain responses and his blood flow responses, which goes a long way to helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and he reckons he can teach that, and he has taught people to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
His methods.
Yep.
So there is a great deal in there, and I haven't even got into the placebo effect.
Yes.
Which I won't go into at all.
No.
But
leave that for another movie.
Read that up, because the placebo effect is also just incredible that it even exists.
Yes, well, then that could beg that question. And it's like, well, if you thought you were a superhero, could you just be a superhero?
Yeah, there are or have been.
Or are you just crazy?
People acting as costume superheroes in the States. Like there's a dude that goes around dressed up, and he doesn't bust crimes. He helps people out.
Yeah.
In various ways. And then, of
there's
course,
also the guy that climbs the skyscrapers, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a guy, what he would do, he would walk around and he'd put, with spare coins, and put money into parking meters.
Yeah, superhero.
And there's another guy who would hand out condoms, like on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be a couple.
All superheroes.
There'd be a couple walking to the taxi ranks, and he'd be handing out condoms. Like, that's more practical superheroism, isn't it?
Superhero in a good way, yes.
He doesn't have to do that.
No.
He's doing that all on his own, you know. He's making people's day. I'd much rather Superman did that to me. Like, not hand out condoms. That'd be a bit weird.
Thanks, Superman.
But you could imagine him. I'm walking along and I'm about to sneeze.
You've got X-ray vision, Superman. You give me a condom. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm about to sneeze. He hands me a packet of tissues.
That's right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right. Awesome. That brings us, and you are a freak. I am a freak. We are freaks. That's what this movie leaves you on, and that's what I want to leave you on tonight. Let us know what you thought about Freaks. You're one of us. What we talked about. Hit us up on our socials on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're also on the interwebs. Out there. Google us. You'll find us. There's more of that Googling to come, and you'll find us in more places. And the next episode, at number 52, I've picked the movie called The Discovery. Discovery. 2017. It is available, as always, on Netflix. It's directed by Charlie McDowell. Check it out. I haven't seen it. We're going in joy watching, and I hope you do that too.
I do too. But there is one last question of any listeners out there. I talked about the difference of German films and filming. I can't put my finger quite on the exact combination or why this sort of German and some of the Norse, Scandinavian sort of films have this same sort of feel. If anyone does, drop us a line and
let us
explain
know.
Germanic filmmaking.
The current, because it's very different to... I could talk a lot about German expressionism film that happened way back in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, but that's not what's going on in these films. So what's the modern day German film?
Yeah, interesting.
Felix, let us know.
Felix, get in touch.
All right, thanks folks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.